Hey guys, welcome back. It's Professor Hank, and it's time for another Random Ramble video. So by the time you're watching this, it's going to be Friday, March 18th, 2022. And I thought in this video I would get back to kind of the roots of Random Ramble videos. Well, I don't know if it's maybe the roots, but talk a little bit more about computer sciencey stuff, get away from the depressing war stuff a little bit, give you a little bit of a break from that. And I thought I would start by talking about the question that I get sometimes, and that question is, what's the best programming language to learn? What programming language should I learn? What's the best? Okay, and the answer that I give is it depends. And there really isn't a best programming language. I mean, I say that, but it basically boils down to, what problem are you trying to solve? And once you've done a requirements analysis and once you've figured out, nailed down, what you're trying to do, at that point, there may or may not be a programming language that is the best for your situation. There isn't one programming language that's like the overall best at everything. Okay, what there is that there are certain programming languages that are more useful in certain situations. So, for example, if I had to solve a problem that had to do with manipulating strings, okay, I had to write a program that was going to be doing a lot of string processing. And I had to decide, well, which language am I going to write that program in? For example, maybe I'm thinking about Python as opposed to C. Well, for string processing, assuming that speed isn't the most pressing concern, then I would go with Python. Just off the top of my head, why I lean towards Python. Why? Because working with strings in Python is a heck of a lot easier than working with strings in C. In C, strings are C strings. They're arrays of characters, and working with arrays of characters is a pain in the backside, right? But in Python, there are tools built into the language that makes string processing relatively easy. For example, concatenation, comparing strings, a lot easier than the same types of tasks you would do in C. So in that particular case, Python would be better than C. Now, if I wanted to write a game engine, then I would need to, or speed of execution would be at a premium if I wanted to be able to maximize my frame rate and utilize libraries for that purpose. In that case, C would stomp all over Python. So when you ask, what's the best programming language to learn? Depends. What are you trying to do? And even then, I could argue that that's the wrong question, right? It's not even a good question. Maybe not so much the wrong question, but it's a bad question, because programming languages are just tools. Okay, they're just tools. It's kind of like saying, well, what's the best hammer to learn how to swing? What's the best type of hammer to learn how to swing? Should I specialize on a sledgehammer, or should I learn a claw hammer, or should I learn a mallet? It's kind of nonsensical, because each of those hammers has a different purpose or is specialized in different ways. I mean, sure, you could nail two boards together with a sledgehammer, but it'd be a lot easier with a ball peen hammer, right? If you needed to have the ability to remove nails from a piece of wood that you nailed together, well, then a ball peen hammer or a sledgehammer would probably be the wrong choice, right? What's more important is the fact that you understand how to swing a hammer or how to use a hammer in general. So the best thing to do, instead of asking the question, well, what's the best programming language? The best thing to do is to say, well, how do I program? How do I solve problems? How do I design a solution That's what's more important, because then if you know how to program in general, if you know what repetition structure is, if you know what a decision structure is, if you know what functional programming is, if you know what object-oriented programming is, and how those paradigms work, then you select the programming language for the task at hand. And when I was working in the industry, when I was working for a software engineering company, when we would do bids for certain projects, we build that into the bid. Right? There might be the case that we may need to pick up a certain programming language for this particular task, and so there'd be some ramp up time, and so that would be built into the price estimate. So it depends. It depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Now, that being said, if you're talking about, well, what programming language is in demand right now, most in demand, well, that's a different question, right? If you frame what's the best programming language to learn in terms of what's in the most demand, well, then that becomes that's a different question then, right? Because you're asking what programming language is the best for me to get a job right now, right? That's what's you're asking. What's the best way for me to be employable? Maybe. Well, that's different. Okay. Well, in that case, then you could look at some objective metrics, and one objective metrics is the TIOBE matrix, okay, or index. So let me shift over and show you that. Okay, or try to show you that. Should pop up. There we go. So you can see there's a TIOBE.com / we got what in / TOB index or TOB index. I don't know how to pronounce it. But what this does is this ranks programming languages by search engine. Okay, so basically the thinking here is that the more a particular programming language is searched for, right, the more likely it is that, or the more popular that it is. And so as of the publishing of this video, or at least as of the recording of this video, in March, you can see that there is a ranking here. So according to this, as of March 2022, the most searched for, the most popular by their definition programming language was Python. So that's the most in demand. Number 2 is C. Number 3 is Java. 4 C++. 5 C#. So you can see in the top 5, some 4 out of the top 5 languages are some variation of C, right? Either C#, C++, Java, or C. Or C-like language, maybe I should even say that. Okay, and surprisingly enough, number 9 is assembly language. Okay, I suspect that's more because people don't use assembly all that much, so they're always searching or Googling assembly so they can figure out how to do something. But you can see that there's the top 20 languages. And it's interesting that Objective-C is way down at number 18, probably because Apple has such a small overall market share in terms of their platform. Although, iPhones certainly bring that up maybe, but Objective-C 18, when you consider how, here you go, here's an example of Objective-C in the searching for it. It was really popular in 2012, 2014, and then died off a bit and has been in decline since. But when you consider Apple's market share, that it's number 18, it's kind of impressive anyway. MATLAB's way up here, but the top 5 consistently, C, C++, C#, and number 1 right now is Python. March 2021, Python was number 3, and C was number 1, and Java was number 2. So, when you look at a computer science program, at a university or whatever, and they have a combination of Python and C++, and maybe a little bit of Java thrown in there. This could be why. This could be why. Okay, in terms of its popularity. SQL in there. I mean, I would say that if you had to say, or if you had to ask that question, if you insist on asking that question, what's the best language to learn? It's probably going to be C based off of these search results, or C++, because C++ is C with object-oriented programming bolted on. If you can program in C++, then you can program in C for the most part. But if you have within your toolbox a combination of C++, Python, and probably SQL, then that's going to really hold you in good stead, right? If you've got some knowledge of those programming languages, then you're in pretty good shape. Because Python, you look at R, and that is number 11. Python and R, my understanding is, are pretty similar languages, and I can't say that with firsthand knowledge because I haven't done anything with R, but a lot of the students that have taken my Python class, and a lot of people I've talked to have said that they're very similar. As a matter of fact, when I'm over in Portugal, I think I'm going to start playing around with a couple more programming languages since I'm going to have time, and I think it's time for me to start poking around with R, and maybe even Go. Go is an up and comer, but you'll notice Java's number 3, and for those of you who are my Android students, or the Android people, Android, they're really trying to push Kotlin as a programming language, but you'll see it's not even in the top 20. And you would think that if it was really being widely adopted, right, especially as popular as Android is, that Kotlin would be in the top 20, right? But it hasn't caught on. Java's still, number 3. So, these are just my impressions based off of what the rankings are. It seems to me that it would be higher if it was being as widely adopted as they're trying to push it to be. Now, it's interesting. Let's take a look at let's keep going here. So Prolog is 21. That's kind of surprising to me. Ada's 28. Look, Kotlin's all the way down at number 31. Lisp is 33. It's only 2 positions above Lisp. Let's see here. D. That would be fun to play around with D, but keep on going all the way down. Haskell's number 49 or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's you can even see long term. Look at C. Ever since 1987, it's been number 1, number 2, for forever. It's been up there for the longest time. This is overall by year, not by month, right? But C, even in 2022, overall for the year is like the number 1. So if you had to learn anything, if you had to say, well, what's the best to learn? C, C++, Python has gained in popularity, you can see over the years. Lisp has been declining in popularity. Well, yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, it's a sucky language. I hate it to death. But JavaScript's been gaining in popularity, probably because of web tech. The prevalence of web technologies and whatnot. It's interesting. SQL is number 10 in 2022, but Lisp has been following popularity. Prolog making a little bit of a comeback. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, overall, the programming language that's the best programming language. It's for whatever is going to make solving your particular problem easiest, most efficient. Okay. What's more important than any particular programming language is the fact that you learn how to program, that you learn how to problem solve, that you learn how to do software engineering. Okay, because one programming language is just it's a tool. It's not the end all be all. If you're like, oh, I'm going to learn C and I don't need to learn anything else. No, that's not how it works. You're going to be learning using multiple languages, and it's really not. It's not that big a deal. I think I've told the story to students before. When I learned Python, or how I learned Python, was in between when I graduated with my bachelor's degree and before I started grad school. During Christmas break, I had an interest in Python because a version of stackless Python was being used in an MMO that I was playing at the time, which was EVE Online. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. They're doing this really cool stuff with Python running their server cluster. And so I was like, yeah, well, I got this 4-year degree, and let's see if I know how to program. Let's see if I can, do what I'm preaching, right now, so that you should be able to pick up a new programming language pretty fast. And so in about 3 weeks or so, I picked up the basics of Python and wrote a Notepad clone in Python. Right, so I just sat down and I said, well, let's see if I can make my own version of Notepad, Windows Notepad. And yeah, no problem, 3 weeks at the most. Why? Because GUI programming is GUI programming. Event-driven programming is event-driven programming. Whether you're using Java or C++ or C or whatever, okay, or if it's Windows GUI stuff, the concepts are going to be similar. And so it was just a matter of, well, how does Python do a loop? How does Python make a text field? Okay, I sat down and made a features list, and I looked at what Windows Notepad had, and I came with a design, how I want it to look, and all of that. And then I just looked up what I need to look up. Checked the documentation in Python, and just through a little bit of trial and error. And I just played with it and got it to work. And after I got it to work, I had the basics of how Python worked. So it's not hard. You can do it. So don't freak out by thinking, oh, there's this one particular language that I have to absolutely positively learn. No, it's not like that. All right. So I think we'll go ahead and keep this one short. I just had a couple of things to say about, what's the best programming language? The best programming language is the programming language that gets the job done the most efficiently, for that particular problem that you're trying to solve. Okay, so that's everything I have in this video. And just a reminder that my Random Ramble videos are videos that I do to try to keep in contact with students, and they began as a result of COVID and the fact that we used to always talk during office hours about all kinds of different things, and this is just a way to reconnect. But now, as we're moving back into in-person classes, we're gonna have those conversations during my office hours like we used to have. But I'm gonna keep doing these for as long as I find them entertaining, as long as you find them entertaining. Remember, I don't know what I'm talking about. My opinions are my own. Do your own research, come up with your own ideas. I reserve the right to change my ideas at any time, and my ideas are always evolving, and I reserve the right to change them at any time. So thanks for watching, and please consider supporting the channel in various ways if you find the videos useful. We got memberships, we got subscriptions, we've got memberships that offer additional perks for as little as 99 cents. And leave a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Glory to Ukraine.